The new villain for Black Ops 7 Zombies was finally revealed, but the biggest question on everyone's minds right now is who exactly is he? Well, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what we know so far, combing through every mention and clues Treyarch has given us about this villain, who might originate from the Aether storyline all the way back in 2009. We have a lot to discuss, and this is a very exciting video, so I hope you guys enjoy it, and I would love to know your thoughts and theories about this villain in the comments. Jumping straight in, let's dive into exactly what we know about him so far. And to begin, we need to go back to August 2024, before Black Ops 6 had even launched. At that point, we were experiencing the end of the Modern Warfare zombie story arc, which was still within the Dark Aether storyline, but set 30 years after Black Ops 6 and 7. It concludes with the main character Ava Jansen visiting Liberty Falls in the year 2023, staying in a hotel room nestled within the town, and at one point a shadowy figure appears on the mirror floating in front of the Liberty Falls mansion, being Shattered Veil. This was our very first look at the Black Ops 7 villain, who moments later disappeared, and a little while later the mirror transformed into a dark ether portal with a mysterious hand reaching out, calling for Ava Jansen. Noticing this hand, she reaches out to it, believing it to be Samantha Maxis, but the hand grabs her, pulling her through the mirror, disappearing into the dark ether to never be seen again. Prior to this cutscene, we as the players take down a dark ether version of Ava Jansen known as the Entity. During the Entity's final moments, she says, "Little sister, he is searching for you. The Shadowsmiths will take you." And that is exactly what happens. A shadowy figure finds her and pulls her into the dark ether. So at a fundamental, we know that this villain is part of a group called the Shadowsmiths. And whilst he might be described as a Shadowsmith, it seems that he is part of a group called the Shadowsmiths. Paying very close attention to his silhouette in the mirror and then the hand that reaches out of the mirror shortly after, that hand does match the hands of the villain that we see in the Ashes of the Damned cinematic. But rather seeing the arms of a leather jacket, what Sewell looks to be the hoodie that Samantha Maxis was wearing when she entered the Dark Ether, giving off the impression that he is able to shape-shift. It wasn't until April of this year that we finally started to learn more about this villain, as it turns out that Dr. Panos was contacted by this mysterious villain, who he nicknamed as the Great Voice from Beyond, claiming he could provide him knowledge of the Dark Ether, though Panos would have to want it with all of his body and soul. Panos agreed to work with him as a shadow benefactor, and as a dream guided him through the Ashes of the Damned, where the villain made a solemn promise to Panos that this land that once was will be restored. Ultimately, Panos was betrayed by this villain, as he manipulates Panos into creating the Gorgafex upgrade as a way for him to consume more life essence. The Gorgafex wonder weapon originally consumes the Forsaken in its creation, and I have seen some theories out there, such as from Margwa Network, suggesting that because the Forsaken was a shapeshifter in Black Ops Cold War, by consuming the Forsaken, it gives this villain the ability to potentially shapeshift, explaining how it's possible that he was wearing a hooded sleeve, just like Samantha Maxis in the Modern Warfare Zombies ending. Now, the idea of shapeshifting isn't something new in the zombie storyline, as Dr. Monty and the Shadow Man have completely different original appearances to the more human-like appearances that we saw in Black Ops 3 and 4. So the appearance of this villain in the intro cutscene might not actually be representative of what he truly looks like, but we need to break down the aesthetic, because he looks like a cowboy, wearing cowboy boots, a cowboy hat, and clearly speaks with a southern accent. But one of the biggest details that gives away any sort of real backstory to him is the emblem on his hat, as this emblem looks to be a cavalry emblem, specifically the US cavalry emblem, which is seen in the backwards crossed sabers. Behind those crossed sabers looks to be two arrows, and these are all placed on top of what looks to be a shield with some sort of striped texture. Some are speculating right now that this could possibly be from the Civil War era or the American Indian Wars, which took place between the 1600s and the end of the 1800s. The type of hat the villain is wearing is a Stetson hat, which have existed since the 1800s. Then when you combine that with the aviator sunglasses that he's wearing in his introduction, his attire seems to be a mixed match of completely different time periods, where there really isn't any cohesion between it all. But let's now circle back on his accent, as clearly he has a southern twang. However, it seems that he also has the ability to mimic different voices, as back during the Modern Warfare Zombies ending cutscene, Ava Jansen hears him speaking as a chorus of whispers, the sound of the voice itself mimicking the Entity's voice. So similarly here with all 8 of our characters, he could be mimicking someone else's voice. So the real question is, whose voice could he be mimicking? But we'll dive into that in a moment because there are two very interesting theories for this. But it is worth pointing out as well that the characters can hear him both before and after he physically disappears, almost as if he is the announcer of the Dark Ether, which would further back the claims of him feeding off the life essence of the Forsaken through the Gorg effects, giving him the ability to control the Dark Ether and be the announcer like the Forsaken was. We can back this up even further by the fact he describes them as the main course, as if to insinuate he has consumed something earlier, with that starter being Panos and the Forsaken. Here's a refresher on exactly what he says to our 8 characters.
I know y'all are confused. So was I. But as they say, this too shall pass.
So for me, the first interesting part is the fact that he says, I know you're confused, so was I. Which to me sounds like he might have also originally been in the position that the 8 characters now are, implying that he has some history with this current situation, as he too was originally confused. And I think an amazing backstory to this would be if he was once in the same situation and was completely manipulated into becoming part of the Shadowsmiths, and that the real big bad villain behind all of this isn't actually him, but him simply acting as a benefactor to a higher power. Now, a really interesting discovery, and big credit to Donuts for this, is that the voice of this villain seemingly matches the narrator of the original Liberty Falls gameplay trailer.
But as they say, this too shall pass.
Neighbors help one another. We're church. Ain't just for Sundays.
See y'all real soon.
So if you're passing this way, be sure to stop on by.
Now, whilst I can't say with 100% certainty that those voices are the same, they do sound incredibly similar. And it would be the most clever of foreshadowing if Treyarch actually did this on purpose as a way to directly connect the link to why he appeared in the mirror in Liberty Falls and Modern Warfare Zombies. What if there is some bigger context and connection to Liberty Falls here with his appearance that could explain why he has the southern accent? Could his voice and appearance be from someone from Liberty Falls? We just don't know. Whilst the Wonder Vehicle isn't shown in the intro cinematic, in the key art we can see what looks to be the words Old Jesse written on the front side of it, which could be a relation to a real-life person called Jesse. This wouldn't be the first time that we'd seen vehicles within the Dark Ether that originated from a real person, because in Liberty Falls there's an audio log titled Steel Mountain Rescue that reveals that a Steel Mountain Rider member called Cole Hoover referred to his motorbike as Old Blood Burner. A little suspicious that it has the same wording as Old insert word as we see on the front of the Wonder Vehicle saying Old Jesse. It is possible that the Blood Burner may be a transformed version of Carl Hoover's bike, or that the bike carries the spirit of Carl with it speaking. And if there is any correlation between the Liberty Falls trailer narrator and this villain, there's a chance that they could also be linked towards this vehicle as well. Now, the biggest and most prolific theory going on right now that I absolutely love the sound of is the idea that the villain is none other than Jebediah Brown. If you are unaware, in the original Ether story, Jebidiah Brown is the creator of the Pack-a-Punch machine, a blacksmith who was also referred as Old Jeb Brown the Blacksmith. And already, isn't there a funny coincidence with the word Shadowsmith and then blacksmith? But the story goes that when he was 10 years old, him and his mother moved into a mining town that eventually became the Zombies map Buried. A freak accident occurred in one of the mines where a guy called Clive Farnsworth went down to the mines and became a zombie after being exposed to element 115. Jebediah ventured into these mines where he thought he was only there for a few hours, but he actually was missing for 5 days. The following night, Jebediah received a vision in his sleep of 2 angels telling him that he needed to prepare for what was coming. These 2 angels being both Dr. Monty and the Shadow Man, telling him that he would need to build a machine that would grant him great power. Whilst he had no experience building this sort of machinery, the angels promised to help him. This, of course, leading to the creation of the Pack-a-Punch machine, where the angels described it as a machine able to upgrade any weapon put inside of it. Jebediah was able to complete the Pack-a-Punch machine and show it off to the town. Following the success of the creation of the machine, the angels visited him once again, instructing him to craft another machine called the Agarthan device, a machine capable of manifesting the will of the user into reality, granting that which one desires. This device was sought by both the Keepers and the Apothecans as an artifact for ultimate control, but it wasn't something that existed at the same time as the summoning key, so they forced a human to attempt to gather the components to create this device. The creation of the device involved 3 key components: the blood from an elder god, an elemental shard which was formed through permanently binding 4 souls to the ether, and a metallic vessel for these items to reside in. He was unable to retrieve the blood or the shard, but he was able to craft the vessel. In Jebediah's final moments, he used the Pack-a-Punch machine to charge the vessel, and the energy emitted caused several temporal rifts, dislodging the town that he resided in into an underground mine in Angola, which we now know as Buried. At this point, the town became overrun by hordes of zombies, and ultimately Jebediah Brown was murdered by the hordes of undead. This story has carried throughout zombies all the way back from World at War up until modern day, and even when Bricktoff in Pack-a-Punches in Black Ops 3, he mentions a blacksmith in the Old West who created the machine. Someone who grew up in the Old West would be a cowboy, and wouldn't it be perfect if the 2 skulls that he was carrying within each of the cages were the 2 angels that contacted him to create the Pack-a-Punch machine originally, with those skulls potentially being the skulls from the Shadow Man and Dr. Monty. And when Jebediah passed and ascended, how symbolic would it be if he became the god who would look over the 2 angels that originally contacted him, where he is now taking their place and acting as an almighty god or angel talking to other people, lining up nicely with how he came across to Panos in his dreams. I just think the idea of the villain of Black Ops 7 Zombies being the creator of the original Pack-a-Punch machine would be such an awesome twist, connecting both Ether and Dark Ether together. And whilst by no means is this any proof that this is likely, reputable Call of Duty leaker The Ghost of Hope tweeted that the guy who created the Pack-a-Punch machine being the bad guy is pretty cool. I think it's a lot more likely than people think. The only thing so far that disputes this theory is the fact that we hear his voice within radios in Tag der Toten, and the voice actor is clearly different to the one that we hear in this intro cutscene. However, Treyarch could have just changed the voice actor because they wanted to, or potentially even after spending so long in the Dark Ether, his voice has changed. Or, like I said earlier in the video, it's likely that he is just mimicking the voice from someone else. But I've seen this theory spark some amazing conversation in the community, and whilst I'm not 100% confident that this is 100% Jebediah Brown, it would be an amazing twist and something that I think absolutely everyone would love to see happen. Another very interesting point to make out is that another reputable insider known as Tom Henderson, Insider Gaming, teased a year and a half ago about this villain in Black Ops 7 Zombies, where in a response to a tweet by Milo when they revealed Brutus returning, he said to keep calling Brutus by that name and that the Warden is someone else entirely different. Following this up shortly after the intro cinematic went live, saying that the original name for this bad guy was the Warden. Whether that has changed or not remains to be seen, but it is definitely something to bear in mind.